It all started with this article in The Guardian by Osama Hassan, a physicist and part-time Imam, who urged his fellow Muslims to embrace the science of evolution, including human evolution. Deen, a Muslim blogger, responded saying that many scientists in the field of biology and paleontology cast doubt on evolution. I then made a video showing that he was misquoting those scientists, and I used shots from his original blog post to show I wasn't misquoting Adam. Deen is a speaker frequently used by the Muslim Debate Initiative. Their stated aims are promoting debate, dialogue, discourse and discussion between all sections of the global community. They go on to say, MDI welcomes non-Muslims to get involved and participate in the debate. If you are of any particular belief or political ideology, we welcome you and wish to provide you with a platform to debate. But yet my video, which attempted to do exactly that, has now been censored. Deen decided showing clips of his blog represented a copyright infringement, and this was more important than allowing debate, dialogue and discourse. So he had the video pulled from YouTube. Now, I hope the YouTube community, including the Muslim Debate Initiative, will join me in reacting against censorship of open debate. I have re-edited the video to include shots of Adam's post on a public forum, where he posted an almost identical copy of his original blog. I hope that if people spread this video, it will be a lesson that censorship doesn't work. Thanks very much. Hi, this video is going to debunk some of the arguments and quote mining used against evolution. Now, I'm going to use the blog of someone I've debated as a sort of typical example of this sort of thing, and it's the Muslim apologist Deen. Although there are many creationist websites that make similar arguments. Many of them are copied and pasted from each other's websites. What the evolutionary hypothesis is saying is that humans and chimps are the most recent branches of a hierarchy of animals that evolved from a common ancestor that probably was neither human nor chimp. We can see this in the graph from Nature, and Nature is one of the top scientific journals in the world. Now, Adam talks about Karl Popper, and I agree Karl Popper is aptly described using Nobel Prize winner Peter Medawar's words. He says he is uncomparably the greatest philosopher of science who has ever lived. Now, he claims that Popper didn't think evolution was a testable scientific theory because it was supposedly not falsifiable. Now, it seems like Popper's thoughts are bad news for evolution. But Adam hasn't done his homework. Popper was a big fan of Darwin, and although he at one point said it wasn't testable, he later recanted. And here you can see one of his lectures. Let's just take a look here. So he says, I still believe that natural selection works in this way as a research program. Nevertheless, I have changed my mind about the testability and the logical status of the theory of natural selection, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to make a recantation. My recantation may, I hope, contribute a little to the understanding of the status of natural selection. So it's clear that Popper did think evolution was testable, and we can see that evolution is easily testable and it makes falsifiable predictions. The theory that humans and chimps evolved from a common ancestor can be tested in many ways. Here are just two examples. Firstly, in evolutionary theory, the point of origin of a migrating population should have the highest genetic diversity at that point of its origin. This was first discovered by Nikolai Vavilov, and Vavilov was arrested and eventually died in a gulag. And he was arrested by Stalin for opposing the sort of pseudoscience of anti-evolutionists. Now, since evolution states humans and chimps evolved from a common ancestor in Africa, Vavilov's theory implies that native Africans should have higher genetic diversity than any other group of modern humans. And this is exactly what has been found. You can read this article here, or if you want the peer-reviewed article, you can go here. Now, another falsifiable prediction is that humans should have evidence of a fused chromosome, as humans have one less pair of chromosomes when compared to other primates like chimps. So where did this chromosome go? Well, evolutionary theory implies a previous primate ancestor's chromosomes fused together, and that's why we have one less pair. Now, if we don't find evidence of this, then evolution has a big problem. Here we can see two chromosomes. And notice on the left, these are the two chromosomes. You'll see telomeres at the end of the chromosome, that's the red bands, and a centromere in the middle of the chromosome. Now, evolution predicts that we're going to find a chromosome that looks like the one on the right. It's fused together, so you can see the telomeres are at the middle, and there are two centromeres. So this is evolution's predictions. The question is, did we find it? The answer is yes. It's chromosome number 2. And you can see this in the discussion on the paper in Nature, and you can see other peer-reviewed research confirming this here and here. So, sorry Adam, Popper recanted his statement. He was a big Darwin himself, and this puts him in complete agreement with the data and shows evolution does make falsifiable predictions, and these have been shown to be remarkably accurate. More importantly, what falsifiable predictions does the creationist view make? I would love to hear an answer to that. Now, the next quote is from David Rauch of the Fields Museum. Now, let's see the full context of this quote. Here you can see here that what Rauch is saying is that the fossil record doesn't tell us what mechanism of evolution occurred, not that it doesn't tell us that evolution occurred. Now, I don't have access to the original article here, so I'm using this blog, but what I do have is an essay written by David Rauch in this book. And we can see he's very clear. The fossils say yes to evolution. Now, according to Deen, Mark Ridley's words further muddy the waters. Well, they do if you're Adam Deen and like taking quotes out of context. Let's look at the original quote and see if it really does muddy the waters. Now, this is the section that Adam Deen quotes. It's the bit that says, in any case, no real evolutionist, whether gradualist or punctuationist, uses the fossil record as evidence in favour of the theory of evolution. But what is the bit that Adam Deen doesn't want you to see? It's the very next sentence. This does not mean that the theory of evolution is unproven, says Ridley. And he goes on to say that there are many kinds of evidence for evolution and that we don't need the fossil evidence. He's not saying that the fossil evidence is inconsistent with evolution. And I think to imply otherwise is either bad scholarship for not reading the article, or it's simply dishonest. It's one of the two. Next, we are told that Stephen Jay Gould invented his theory of punctuated equilibrium to account for the lack of fossils. But let's see what Gould really has to say. And here are his words. For that matter, what better transitional form could we expect to find than the oldest human, Australopithecus afarensis? With its ape-like palate, its human upright stance, and a cranial capacity larger than any ape of the same body size, but a full 1,000 cubic centimetres below ours. And he goes on to say, faced with these facts of evolution and the philosophical bankruptcy of their own position, creationists rely upon distortion and innuendo to buttress their rhetorical claims. And if I sound sharp or bitter, indeed I am, for I have become a major target of these practices. Since we propose punctuated equilibria to explain trends, it is infuriating to be quoted again and again by creationists, whether through design or stupidity, I do not know, as admitting that the fossil record includes no transitional forms. Transitional forms are generally lacking at the species level, but they are abundant between larger groups. So clearly, we see the same pattern. A genuine scientist is being misquoted to imply something that they never meant to imply. Next we have Barrow and Tipler's book, The Anthropic Cosmological Principle. Now let's note that Barrow and Tipler are physicists, not biologists, and this book is a popular paperback, not a peer-reviewed piece of research. Actual biologists have modelled the process Deen claims is so unlikely and published them in real scientific journals. For example, again here in Nature, one of the most respected scientific journals in the world, we see these findings show how complex functions can originate by random mutation and natural selection. And the same biologists didn't just stop at calculations and simulations, they did the experiments. Here we can see Richard Lenski's research where they observed E. coli bacteria over thousands of generations. And look at the conclusion again in Nature. Almost all of these mutations were beneficial. So there we have it. That's the last of Adam's links, the anthropic principle. What we see is that none of Deen's claims stand up. In the comment section to his article he claims, "My point was that it is not an undeniable closed case, but rather remains much disputed amongst the very biological experts we'd expect to know best. Yet we've seen that every single biologist Adam mentions is a strong supporter of evolution. Not one of them doubts it, not one." Yet notice what Adam Deen says. Either Osama rejects the inerrancy of the Quran, or he rejects the idea that man evolved from apes, or he has the bigger task of finding good reasons to interpret the text concerning creation in allegorical form. Adam is quite clear that it's too much of a challenge to interpret the Quran as consistent with human evolution, and so he defends his belief by pretending that these biologists he mentions cast doubt on evolution. But as we've seen, they don't. They passionately support evolution. But the evidence for evolution is overwhelming, and just in case you think there is not a consensus on this issue, let's look at the statement from the National Academy of Sciences in the States. They say, "Today there is no significant scientific doubt about the close evolutionary relationships among all primates, including humans. Scientists have unearthed thousands of fossil specimens representing members of the human family. A great number of these cannot be assigned to modern human species, Homo sapiens. Most of these specimens have been well dated, often by means of radiometric techniques. They reveal a well-branched tree, parts of which trace a general evolutionary sequence leading from ape-like forms to modern humans." Now, in case you think it's just scientists from the USA that have this view, a statement signed by the science academies from 68 nations endorsed evolution, including human evolution, and this includes countries like Iran, Pakistan and Palestine. And we can see in this image, these are the transitional fossils that Adam Deen says are lacking, and this is only a selection. There are many, many more. Here's one of the most recent discoveries. This is Ardipithecus ramidus. Now, the next thing you're going to see is the draft genome of the chimpanzee. Now, this was published in Nature, and you can see here the huge number of prestigious universities that wrote this paper up in Nature. Now, notice their conclusion. More than a century ago, Darwin and Huxley posited that humans share recent common ancestors with African great apes. Modern molecular studies have spectacularly confirmed this prediction. I think it's clear that the claims of Adam Deen and other creationists online do not stand up to scrutiny. Thanks very much for watching.